The alien marketplace was alive with noise. 1,000 voices shouting, bargaining, and laughing. The air was heavy with the smell of oil, smoke, and sweat. Banners of different colors hung from tall poles, showing the crests of alien traders from across the galaxy. Buyers and sellers pushed past each other, each one searching for a good deal. In the center stood the auction block, a wide wooden platform where slaves were displayed like broken objects. On this day, most of the crowd was excited. Many strong alien workers were brought up one by one, tall and muscular. Some had scales that glistened in the light. Others had sharp claws that promised strength. Every time the auctioneer shouted their price, hands shot up and voices bid higher. The crowd wanted them, wanted power, wanted usefulness, but then, at the very end of the line, came a figure no one wanted to see. It was a girl, small, thin, and broken. Her skin was covered in bruises. Her clothes were nothing but torn fabric. Her teeth were shattered, some missing. Her lip bleeding from a fresh cut. She kept her eyes on the ground, afraid to meet anyone's gaze. Her body trembled as if even standing was too much for her. The auctioneer laughed as he dragged her to the block. His voice rose over the crowd. Here she is, the last one. Worthless and broken. Not good for work. Not good for pleasure. You can have her for 2 credits. Yes, just 2 credits, the crowd roared with laughter. 2 credits was the price of a stale loaf of bread. Some aliens shouted cruel jokes. She's not worth the spit on my shoe. Pay me and maybe I'll take her, another voice jeered. Look at her teeth, she's like a broken animal. The girl flinched at every word, her shoulders curling inward. Her eyes glistened with silent tears, but she made no sound. For a long moment, no one spoke to buy her. The auctioneer grew impatient. Come now. Someone take her off my hands. She will eat little. She will die soon. But maybe she can clean floors, anyone? 2 credits. His voice echoed in the silence that followed. The laughter faded, but no hand was raised. Among the crowd stood a human. A traveler who walked alone. His coat was worn, his boots dusty from long roads. His face was calm, but his eyes told a story of loneliness. He had no family, no home that welcomed him. For years, he had wandered across stars, carrying only memories of what he had lost. When his eyes fell on the broken alien girl, something inside him stirred. He did not see her shattered teeth or her bruised body. He saw the way she tried to remain silent, the way her small hands clenched to keep from shaking. He saw the hopelessness in her eyes, a hopelessness he himself knew too well. The auctioneer shouted again. 2 credits, only 2, cheaper than feeding a dog. Someone must want her. Still no one raised a hand. Some even turned away, disgusted to look at her, and then the human stepped forward. His voice was steady. I'll take her. The crowd turned to him in surprise. A ripple of laughter spread again, louder this time. The human wants the broken one. What will you do with her, traveler? Polish her bones. Better throw your money into the fire. The auctioneer smirked. Are you serious, human? 2 credits for trash. The human reached into his pocket and placed 2 credits on the table without a word. The auctioneer blinked in disbelief, then shrugged. She's yours then. Take her and don't bring her back when she dies. The girl lifted her head slowly. Her wide eyes looked at the human, confusion and fear mixing in them. She could not understand why anyone would buy her. Was he going to hurt her? Was he going to use her until she broke completely? But the human's gaze was different. His eyes were not cruel, not mocking. They held something she had never seen directed at her before. Pity, and perhaps even a spark of kindness, as the chain around her wrists was handed to him. The crowd roared again, mocking the foolish human, a lonely man with a broken pet. Enjoy your garbage. Humans really are strange. But he ignored them. He placed a cloak around her shoulders to cover her wounds and gently whispered, You're coming with me now. The girl's breath caught in her throat. Her body trembled as she stepped off the block. Every step beside him felt unreal. For years she had been passed around like nothing, beaten until her body gave way, and now someone had chosen her, not for strength, not for beauty, but simply chosen. The crowd's laughter echoed behind them, but it no longer mattered. The auction block faded into the distance, and for the first time in her life, the alien girl wondered if this was the beginning of something different. She did not know if she dared to hope, but she felt the faintest warmth in the human's voice, and the human, walking silently beside her, felt something too. For the first time in many years, he was not alone. The road away from the marketplace was quiet. The human walked with steady steps, his hand holding the chain that bound the girl's wrists. She followed slowly, her feet dragging as if every step hurt. The noisy laughter of the crowd still echoed in her ears, their cruel words carved into her mind like old scars. She expected the human to mock her too. Perhaps once they were out of sight, he would show his true face, but he said nothing. His silence was not heavy with anger or cruelty. It was a calm silence, the silence of someone who had no need for loud words. After a while, he glanced at her and noticed the way she kept her eyes down. He sighed softly and removed the chain from her wrists. The metal fell to the ground with a dull sound. She stared at her freed hands in shock, unable to believe he would do such a thing. "You are not property," he said quietly. "You walk because you choose to, not because you are pulled." His voice was low but firm. The girl's heart raced. Was this another trick? She had been told lies before, promises that turned into pain, but something about the human's tone felt different. He spoke not like a master, but like someone speaking to another living being. They reached a small inn on the edge of town. The building was old, its walls stained with dust. The human pushed open the door. A tired innkeeper looked up, eyes narrowing at the sight of the alien girl. For a moment he seemed ready to refuse them, but the human laid coins on the counter. "A room for 2 nights," he said. The innkeeper hesitated but took the money and handed over a key. Inside the small room, the girl froze by the door. She was used to cages and cold floors, but here there was a bed with clean sheets, a jug of water, and a small table with bread. The human placed his bag down and gestured. "Sit." She shook her head, afraid to dirty the furniture. He walked over and gently guided her to the chair, then broke a piece of bread and placed it in her hands. Her fingers trembled. She wanted to eat but also feared punishment. Slowly she lifted the bread to her mouth, biting carefully. Her broken teeth hurt, but the food was soft enough. She chewed and swallowed, warm tears slipping down her cheeks. It was the first time in years that anyone had fed her without force or cruelty. The human watched quietly. He did not rush her, did not scold her. Only after she finished eating did he speak again. "I am called Daniel," he said. She looked at him with wide eyes. The sound of his name felt strange. No one had ever offered her their name before. Masters did not share names with slaves. He waited, then asked gently, "Do you have a name?" She lowered her gaze, whispering so softly he almost could not hear. "They called me nothing. Sometimes they called me beast. Sometimes trash." Daniel's jaw tightened. His heart ached at her words. After a pause, he said, "Then you will need a new name, one that belongs only to you." She stared at him, uncertain. No one had ever asked what she wanted. Her voice cracked. "Why? Why do you care?" He leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. "Because I know what it means to be alone," he whispered. His mind wandered back to a small house on a forgotten world, a house where laughter once filled the air. A wife, a child, both lost to war. He had buried his family long ago, and since then, he had walked the galaxy with empty hands. Daniel looked at her again, his eyes softened. "I cannot replace what you lost, and you cannot replace what I lost. But maybe together, we can find something new." His words hung in the air, gentle but heavy with meaning. The girl's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, yet fear wrapped around her heart. She whispered, "People laughed at you for buying me. They called me worthless." Daniel gave a small smile. "Let them laugh. Their voices do not decide your worth. Nor mine. Family is not chosen by them, it is chosen by us." That night, she lay on the bed, her body stiff at first, afraid to sleep in comfort. Daniel sat near the window, his back straight, watching the stars outside. Hours passed before she finally closed her eyes. In her dreams, the voices of the marketplace still haunted her, but a new voice was there too, calm and steady, saying, "You are not property." Daniel did not sleep. He kept watch, not because he feared danger, but because he knew how fragile trust was. The girl was like a bird with broken wings. If he moved too fast, too harsh, she would retreat into fear again. He had to be patient enough to show her that his choice was real. The morning sun crept through the small window. She opened her eyes slowly and found Daniel already awake. Preparing a simple meal, he placed water before her. "Drink," he said. She obeyed, though not out of fear but because his voice carried quiet care. She studied him carefully, trying to understand him. A man who had no reason to buy her, no reason to be kind. Why had he done it? Her heart whispered a question she did not dare speak aloud. Could it be that he truly meant what he said? That she was no longer a slave but something else? Daniel looked at her once more, his face calm. "From today you will not walk behind me. You will walk beside me." She blinked, the words sinking deep into her soul. A small spark of warmth began to grow in her chest, fragile and uncertain but real. And so, on that morning, the girl who had been bought for only 2 credits began to feel a change. Daniel had made his choice not out of pity alone but out of a longing for connection. He had chosen her not as property but as family. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, something had begun that neither of them could turn away from. The sun was sinking when Daniel and the alien girl left the inn and walked down the dusty road. He had decided to travel further from the noisy town, where curious eyes and mocking voices would not follow them. The girl walked quietly beside him, her steps small and unsure. Her wrists still carried the faint red marks of chains, and her broken teeth made her hide her mouth whenever she looked at him. Daniel carried no luggage except a worn leather bag on his back. His life had been stripped of possessions long ago, and he never gathered more than he could carry. Tonight, however, he had something far heavier than all the tools and clothes in his bag. He had a fragile life entrusted to him, a soul so beaten down it barely remembered how to breathe. They reached a small abandoned cabin at the edge of a quiet forest. The wooden walls leaned slightly, the roof patched with sheets of metal, but it was enough for shelter. Daniel pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dust floated in the air and a faint smell of damp wood lingered. He lit a small lantern, filling the room with a soft glow. The girl stayed near the doorway, her body tense. Her eyes darted around the cabin as if expecting hidden chains or cruel hands to leap out from the shadows. She had learned long ago that safety was only a trick, and kindness was only a mask. Her voice was small when she spoke. "Do you want me to stand in the corner or on the floor?" Daniel turned to her, his expression unreadable at first. Then he shook his head. "No, you will not stand. You will not sleep on the floor. You will rest on the bed." She froze, her heart pounding. Her mind told her this was a trap. Masters had made such offers before, only to laugh when she obeyed. But Daniel's eyes did not hold cruelty. They carried a weight of loneliness, not mockery. He set his bag down and began to clear dust from the bed. The mattress was thin but better than the cold ground. He placed a blanket on it and stepped back. "It is yours tonight," he said. The girl shook her head quickly. "I cannot." "It is not for me," her voice cracked. "If I sleep there, you will punish me." Daniel walked closer, kneeling so that his gaze met hers. His voice was steady. "No one will punish you here. Not for resting, not for breathing, not for being alive." She felt her chest tighten, as if those words had struck something deep inside. Her legs wobbled, and she sat slowly on the edge of the bed. Her hands clenched the blanket, waiting for the strike that never came. Daniel only turned away and lit a small fire in the stone hearth. The warmth spread through the cabin, chasing away the cold for the first time in years. She was given food again. Daniel placed a bowl of stew before her, made from simple vegetables and dried meat. The smell was comforting, but she hesitated, her voice trembled. "If I eat too much, you will be angry." He shook his head. "Eat as much as you need, there is no punishment here." She ate slowly, each bite both a relief and a fear. Her broken teeth made chewing painful. But the warmth of the stew soothed her. Daniel did not rush her. He only ate his share quietly, letting her take her time. When she finally finished, her stomach felt warm in a way she had almost forgotten. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from pain but from a strange feeling she could not name. Later, as the fire crackled, Daniel sat by the window. His eyes stared at the dark forest beyond. He seemed lost in thought. The girl watched him, confusion in her mind. Why had he done this? Why had he bought her, freed her, fed her, and given her a bed? No one in her life had ever done such things without wanting something in return. Her voice broke the silence. "Why me?" Daniel turned his head. His eyes were calm but heavy with memories. "Because you were left behind," he said simply. "I know what it feels like to be left behind." His words sank into her heart like stones dropped into deep water. She did not understand everything, but she felt the truth in his tone that night. When Daniel finally lay down on the floor with only his cloak, the girl could not sleep. She kept expecting him to rise, to show his hidden cruelty, but he only stayed still. His breathing slow and steady, the fire burned low, filling the cabin with soft light. She turned on the bed, clutching the blanket, her heart torn between fear and a strange warmth. As hours passed, she realized he was keeping his distance on purpose, giving her space, letting her rest without fear. Slowly, her body began to relax, her eyelids grew heavy. She whispered into the quiet room, words so faint even she barely heard them. Maybe. I am safe. And for the first time in many years, she closed her eyes and slept without chains. Daniel did not close his eyes. He lay awake on the hard floor, staring at the flickering fire. His thoughts wandered to his lost family, to the laughter of his child, to the silence after war had taken them. His heart ached, but when he glanced at the fragile girl asleep on the bed, something softened. She was broken, yes, but not gone. Just as he was broken, yet still walking, in that silence he made a promise, not to her but to himself. I will not fail this time, he thought. He would give her what he had lost, not out of pity but out of the need to heal himself as well. And so the night passed, the cabin filled with two kinds of silence, one of cautious rest and one of quiet determination. When morning came, the forest sang with birds. The girl stirred in her sleep, clutching the blanket close. Daniel rose and prepared the fire again, his movements steady, his eyes tired but firm. The first night together had not erased her fear, nor his grief, but it had planted something fragile between them, something that could grow. And for both the human and the alien girl, it was the beginning of family. The days after their first night together were not easy. The girl woke each morning with fear still heavy in her chest. Every sound made her flinch. Every movement of Daniel's hand made her brace for pain. Her body carried the memories of countless beatings, and her mind did not trust kindness. She expected cruelty behind every gentle word. She expected betrayal behind every quiet act. Daniel understood this. He did not force her to smile. He did not rush her to speak. Instead, he worked slowly, carefully, like someone repairing a broken piece of glass. He gathered herbs from the forest, boiled water, and cleaned the wounds that marked her skin. The girl winced with every touch, her breath quick and shallow. But Daniel's hands were steady. He said nothing except soft instructions. Hold still, this will sting. But it will heal. At first she tried to pull away. Her mind screamed that no one ever touched her without hurting her. But Daniel's grip was firm without cruelty. He never struck her, never raised his voice when he was done. He would always cover her with a blanket and say, "Rest now. You're safe for tonight." The words sounded strange to her, almost like a song in a language she had never learned. Her broken teeth were the worst. She hid her mouth behind her hands, ashamed of the jagged edges and the way her smile looked ugly. Daniel noticed this and began to make softer meals, stews and broths that required little chewing. He did not comment on her teeth, did not laugh at her face. Instead, he told her, "You do not need to hide. I see you, and you are not shameful." The words made her chest ache with confusion. Could someone truly look at her and not see a monster? One evening, as the fire warmed the cabin, Daniel opened an old medical guide he carried in his bag. The book was tattered, its pages yellowed. He had learned much from it after the war, when he had to treat his own wounds. Now he used it for her. He studied the drawings of alien anatomy, comparing them to her form, trying to understand how to ease her pain. She watched him with wide eyes. "Why do you care so much?" she whispered. Daniel paused, his eyes fixed on the page. "Because no one cared for me when I needed it most," he said quietly. "I know what it feels like to be broken and alone. I will not let you feel that way if I can help it." The girl's throat tightened. She looked down at her hands, the scars across her wrists glowing in the firelight. Her voice cracked. "But I am worthless." Daniel turned to her, his gaze steady. "No one is worthless. You survived what should have destroyed you. That is not weakness. That is strength." She shook her head quickly, not believing him, but inside a tiny part of her wanted to believe. A fragile seed of hope she was afraid to touch. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, her wounds began to close. The bruises faded, the cuts healed, her bones still ached. But Daniel made splints for her weaker limbs, binding them carefully so they would mend. He showed her how to stretch her fingers again, how to walk with steadier steps. At first she resisted, thinking she would only fail. But Daniel never scolded her, never mocked her. He only said, "Try again. You are doing better than yesterday sometimes." When she sat by the fire, she would glance at him when he was not looking. She noticed the way his eyes carried sadness. The way he stared at the flames as if seeing ghosts. She wondered what pain he carried, what wounds he hid beneath his calm voice. The thought startled her, for she had never cared about another before. Pain had always taught her to think only of herself, of survival. Yet here she was, wondering about the human who called her family. One night, a storm raged outside. Rain hammered against the roof and thunder shook the cabin. The girl trembled with every strike of lightning, memories of cages and whips flashing in her mind. Daniel noticed and moved closer, not to touch but to sit within her sight. "Storms pass," he said softly. "They are loud, but they always end." His voice was calm, steady, a rock against the storm. She focused on it, clung to it, and slowly her breathing eased. When the thunder grew distant, she whispered into the quiet, "I thought you would tire of me by now. I thought you would send me away." Daniel's face softened. "I did not bring you here to throw you away. I brought you here because I chose you." She swallowed hard, the words pressing against her chest like heavy stones. "No one ever chose me before," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Then let this be the first time." It was not easy. Trust did not come in a day. Healing did not arrive in a week. But step by step, moment by moment, the girl began to breathe more freely. She began to eat without fear of punishment. She began to sleep without waiting for pain, and sometimes when she forgot herself, a small laugh would escape her lips, a sound fragile and strange. Daniel would smile quietly when he heard it, not pointing it out, not making herself conscious. The girl still hid her broken teeth, but Daniel's patience planted a seed. One evening, when she thought he wasn't watching, she smiled at the fire. Her smile was crooked, sharp, broken, but in that moment, she felt warmth instead of shame. For the first time, she wondered if perhaps her scars did not make her ugly. Perhaps they made her alive, and so, in the small cabin at the edge of the forest, healing began. Not just of wounds, but of trust. It was slow, it was fragile, but it was real. And though both human and alien carried their own broken pieces, together they began to shape something new. When Daniel finally brought the girl into the nearby town again, whispers spread quickly. The marketplace that once laughed at her 2-credit price now buzzed with new rumors. People pointed, their alien faces twisted with curiosity and scorn. The girl walked beside him, her eyes fixed on the ground. Her steps were steady, but her heart shook with every whisper. "She is still alive," one merchant sneered. "How long until she collapses?" Another voice hissed. "The human wastes food on her. Food better given to beasts." A group of children laughed. Shouting cruel names, they mimicked her broken teeth, pointing and giggling. The girl's cheeks burned with shame. She wanted to vanish, to hide behind Daniel's shadow. But Daniel's steps never faltered. He held his head high, his coat brushing against his boots as he walked straight through the crowd. When one trader spat on the ground and muttered, "Worthless slave," Daniel stopped. His voice was calm but sharp. "She is not a slave," he said. His words cut through the noise like a blade. The crowd quieted for a moment, surprised. The girl's eyes widened. She had never heard anyone defend her, never heard anyone speak for her with such certainty. But the silence did not last. A cruel laugh broke it. "Not a slave," he says. "What then, his pet?" "His pity," another chimed in. "No, his madness. Only a lonely human would pick up trash and call it treasure." The laughter swelled again. Echoing in the air, Daniel's face remained calm, but his eyes hardened. He took the girl's hand gently and continued walking. Each step forward was an answer to their cruelty. He did not argue, he did not shout. He only showed with his actions that he would not abandon her. The girl felt his grip, warm and steady, and though shame still burned inside her, a spark of pride flickered quietly. Later at the market stalls, Daniel bought supplies, flour, dried meat, herbs. The vendors took his money but mocked him behind their smiles. One alien leaned forward and whispered, "You could have had strength for the same price. A worker with muscle. Instead you carry a mouthful of broken teeth." Daniel met his gaze and said simply, "Strength is not only in muscle." He turned away before the alien could reply, leaving the words behind like a stone dropped in water. As they left the market, the girl finally whispered, "Why do you not answer them? Why do you not fight back when they laugh at you?" Daniel looked down at her, his expression softer now. "Because their words do not matter," he said. "What matters is what we choose to believe." She blinked, confused. "But they say I am worthless." Daniel's voice was steady. And I say you are family. The word struck her like thunder. Her chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to say she did not deserve it. But something inside her trembled in a way that was not pain. It was something she had no name for. That evening, back at the cabin, she sat quietly by the fire, her hands twisted in her lap. Daniel prepared their meal. Moving with quiet focus finally, she asked in a low voice, "Do you not feel shame walking with me? Do you not feel small when they laugh?" Daniel stirred the pot slowly, then answered, "I feel no shame. They laugh because they do not understand. I walk with you because I choose to, and my choice is stronger than their laughter." She lowered her head. Her broken teeth pressed against her lip. "No one has ever chosen me," she whispered. "Not once." Daniel placed a bowl before her, meeting her eyes. "Then let this be the first time." The next day, they returned to town for more supplies. Again, the whispers followed them. But this time the girl noticed something different. Not everyone laughed. A few faces watched silently, curious rather than cruel. A mother with a child glanced at them and turned away without mocking. A shopkeeper gave them bread without comment. For the first time, she realized not all voices were against them. Some simply waited to see. That night, as rain tapped gently against the roof, Daniel sat near the fire while she lay on the bed. She thought of the words she had heard, of the cruel laughter, of the rare silence of others. She thought of Daniel's voice, calm and steady, saying, "Family is not about strength. It is about heart." Slowly she whispered into the quiet, "Family." The word felt heavy, unfamiliar, but it carried warmth too. Daniel glanced at her but said nothing. He only added another log to the fire. Letting its light fill the room, she closed her eyes, her body still trembling with doubt. But deep inside, the seed of something fragile had begun to grow. The world outside still mocked her, still called her worthless. But when Daniel took her hand and walked through the crowd, she no longer felt entirely alone. Their laughter could not erase the truth she had begun to feel. And that truth was simple. She was chosen, not as a slave, not as trash, but as family. The cabin had become a fragile shelter, a place where broken wounds were healing slowly. Days passed with quiet routines. Daniel hunted in the forest, gathered herbs, and taught the girl how to light a fire and carry water. She was still weak, her steps uncertain, her hands trembling when she tried to lift anything heavy. Yet Daniel never grew impatient, he told her. Strength is not about what you can carry. It is about what you can endure. The girl listened but did not believe. Her reflection in the small pool outside the cabin still showed a thin figure with scars and broken teeth. When she touched her face, shame filled her. She thought of the voices in the town calling her worthless. They echoed in her ears every night, but Daniel's words lingered too. "You are family." And sometimes when she lay under the blanket, she dared to whisper the word family to herself. Testing its weight one night, the peace was shattered. A sound broke through the stillness, a crash of footsteps, the creak of leather, the low growl of voices. Daniel was by the fire sharpening a knife. He froze, his head lifting. The girl's heart raced. She recognized those sounds, raiders. Her body trembled, memories of cages and whips flooding back. She pressed against the wall, whispering, "They have come." Daniel rose calmly, his voice low. "Stay behind me." But before he could say more, the cabin door burst open. A group of raiders stormed in, their eyes glowing with greed. They were armed with blades and clubs. Their leader sneered when he saw the girl. "So it is true. The human keeps trash's treasure," he mocked. "Hand her over and we may let you live." Daniel stood firm, his knife steady in his hand. "She is mine," he said coldly. "You will not touch her." The girl's eyes widened, fear and confusion mixed in her chest. He did not call her slave, he did not call her burden. He said mine with a tone of protection, not ownership. The raiders laughed. "A broken slave is worth nothing, we will take her anyway." "And your coins too." They lunged forward. Daniel met them with quick strikes. His movements were sharp, practiced. The memory of war alive in his body. But there were too many. And the small cabin filled with chaos. The girl crouched by the wall, her hands gripping the blanket, her breath came fast. Every part of her screamed to hide, to curl into silence as she had always done. Yet when she saw one raider slip behind Daniel, raising a blade to strike his back, something inside her snapped. She grabbed the nearest thing, an iron pot from the fire, and threw it with all her strength. The pot struck the raider's head. He stumbled with a cry. The others turned in surprise. Daniel seized the moment, slashing his knife across another's arm. The fight grew desperate. The girl's body trembled, but she did not stop. She grabbed burning sticks from the fire. Hurling them at the raiders, the flames forced them back, their shouts filling the cabin. Her strength was small, her arms weak, but her courage was fierce. She screamed as she struck one raider with the heavy wooden stool. The sound echoed, sharp and raw. Daniel fought beside her, his blade flashing. Together they forced the raiders out into the stormy night. The leader snarled, his face twisted with rage. "This is not over, human. That girl will bring you nothing but ruin." He spat on the ground and fled with his men into the darkness. The door slammed shut in the wind. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of the fire and their heavy breaths. The girl collapsed to her knees. Her hands shaking, Daniel rushed to her side. "You are hurt," he said, checking her arms for cuts. She shook her head quickly, tears streaming down her cheeks. No, I am not hurt. I fought," her voice broke. "I did not hide. I fought." Daniel's eyes softened. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Yes," he said quietly. "You fought. You are stronger than you believe." She stared at him, her chest heaving. "But I am weak, I am broken." Daniel shook his head. "You are broken, yes, but still you stood. That is true strength." Her tears fell faster. She covered her mouth, ashamed of her crooked teeth. But Daniel gently lowered her hand. "Do not hide your face from me," he said firmly. "Not after tonight. Not after you showed the world your courage," she sobbed, the sound raw and painful. But in those tears was something new. Not only grief, but release. For the first time, she felt she was more than a beaten body, more than a forgotten slave. She had fought for someone, and that someone had fought for her. The storm outside raged, but inside the cabin, something unshakable had begun. The girl looked at Daniel with wide eyes, her voice trembling. "Why do you keep me? Why do you call me family?" Daniel's voice was steady as the firelight glowed on his face. "Because you are worth more than they will ever understand." The girl bowed her head, clutching the blanket tight. The word worth echoed in her mind, a word she had never believed belonged to her. That night she lay awake long after the fight, her body sore, her hands blistered from gripping firewood and iron, but in her chest burned a warmth she had never felt before. She was still broken, still scarred, but she had fought, and she had been seen, and in the silence of the night, she realized that maybe Daniel was right. Maybe she was stronger than she had ever dared to believe. The morning sun crept over the horizon, spilling light through the small cracks of the cabin. The girl woke slowly, her body stiff from the previous night's battle. Yet there was no fear this time, only a strange warm feeling in her chest. She looked at Daniel, still asleep by the fire, his face relaxed, peaceful, the knife he kept so close now resting harmlessly beside him. She realized she had slept without nightmares for the first time in years. She rose quietly, moving to the small window, and looked outside. The forest was calm, the storm from last night now only a memory in the wet leaves. Birds chirped softly and sunlight glimmered on the river nearby. She touched her cheek, her crooked teeth hidden behind trembling lips, but she felt different, stronger, and a small smile crept onto her face. Daniel stirred and opened his eyes. "Morning," he said simply, his voice deep but gentle. The girl nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She carried water from the stream while Daniel prepared a small fire for breakfast. Words were few, but the silence between them was comfortable, filled with a new understanding. They had survived, they had fought, and together they had won after breakfast. Daniel handed her a small bundle. "Clothes," he said. "They might fit better than what you have now." She looked inside. Seeing simple garments, clean and soft, her eyes widened. She had never owned anything like them. She touched the fabric, careful not to tear it, and then met his gaze. "For me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded. "Yes, you deserve more than what the world has given you." The girl dressed quickly, the new clothes brushing against her scarred skin. She looked at her reflection in the water outside, and for the first time she did not look broken. She looked whole. Daniel watched silently, a proud smile hidden behind his calm expression. They spent the morning together, repairing the cabin and gathering food. Their hands sometimes brushed, sending small sparks of connection through the girl's chest. She laughed softly when Daniel dropped a basket of berries and cursed under his breath. "Clumsy," she said, the word tasting foreign but freeing on her tongue. Daniel chuckled, the sound warm and comforting. She felt a strange, new feeling, something she had not known existed in her lonely life. Happiness. By afternoon, they were sitting outside, the sun warm on their shoulders. Daniel handed her a knife. "For protection," he said. "And for yourself." The girl held it carefully. Feeling its weight, its cold metal, and a strange thrill ran through her. She remembered the fight from last night. How her hands had acted without fear. How she had thrown the pot, the stool, and the burning sticks. She had fought and she had survived. She had saved someone and someone had saved her. "I was never strong before," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I was always afraid." Daniel looked at her, his eyes soft. "Strength is not about never being afraid," he said. "It is about acting even when you are afraid." The girl nodded slowly. Letting his words sink in, she realized she had acted, and now she understood what he had meant. She had hidden in the shadows for so long, and now she stepped into the light. The day passed with small victories, chopping wood, cooking over the fire, and sharing stories. The girl learned Daniel's name, and he learned hers. She still did not say it out loud, afraid it might not fit her anymore, but he called her gently, softly until she answered, and it sounded right. A small smile touched her lips, and she repeated it, tasting the sound in her mouth. "Lyra," she whispered, and it felt like a gift. As evening approached, the sky painted with pink and orange, Lyra and Daniel sat together on a log outside the cabin. The forest was quiet but not threatening. It felt safe, welcoming, almost like it belonged to them. She leaned slightly toward him and he did not pull away. The air between them was calm, peaceful, filled with a bond stronger than words. "I never had anyone," she said softly, looking at the fire. "I thought no one would ever want me." Daniel's voice was low but firm. "I chose you, Lyra. Not because you were perfect. Not because the world thought you were worth anything, but because you are worth more than the world will ever know." Her chest tightened, tears spilling, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. She looked at Daniel, and for the first time she believed. She believed in herself, she believed in family. She believed in a life where she could be safe, loved, and strong. The stars began to shine in the darkening sky, twinkling like tiny fires above the forest. Lyra lay down on the soft grass, Daniel beside her, their shoulders touching lightly. "Family," she whispered again, and this time it felt real. She had survived the cruelty of the world, fought her fears, and now she had a place to belong, she had a home. She had someone who would stand by her. She had Daniel and he had her, and in that quiet moment, the pain of the past faded just enough for the promise of tomorrow to take its place. Lyra smiled, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. Filled with hope and courage, she was no longer the beaten, broken slave the world had abandoned. She was Lyra, a fighter, a survivor, a daughter of a family she had chosen. For the first time, she truly believed she was free.